So I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. We have a request for a modification to the agenda. If we do have 10 minutes at the end of the meeting, Marcella from Pacific Beach does want to give an update on this. So to make that happen, we all have to be respectful of one another's time. So it is going to be, when we get to the agenda items, I will be timing everyone. So for public comment, I'll give everyone about 2 minutes. And then for board comment, I'll give everyone around 5 minutes. Great. Okay. So if that is okay with everyone, I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. And if you don't want to agree to the agenda change, just say no, but here. Barrio Logan. Carmel Mountain Ranch. Carmel Valley. Encanto. City Heights.
Here.
Claremont. College area. Del Mar Mesa. Downtown. Eastern area. Here. Greater Golden Hill. Kearney Mesa. Kensington Talmadge. La Jolla. No, we're still not allowed to participate by Zoom. We're just broadcasting it by Zoom. Still working. La Jolla. Linda Vista. Midway. Mira Mesa.
Here.
Mission Beach.
Here.
Mission Valley.
Here.
Navajo.
Please be here.
Normal Heights.
Here.
North Park. Ocean Beach is here. Old Town. Otay Mesa.
Here.
Otay Mesa Nestor. Pacific Beach. Here. Peninsula.
Here.
Rancho Bernardo. Here. Rancho Penasquitos. San Pasqual Lake Hodges. San Ysidro. Scripps Ranch. Here. Serra Mesa. Here. Skyline Paradise Hills.
Here.
Southeastern. Tierra Santa. Torrey Pines. Here. Torrey Hills. University.
Here.
Uptown.
Present.
Thank you. Okay, wonderful. We will go ahead and roll right into non-agenda public comment. Do I have anyone seeking to make non-agenda public comment? Great. Actually, if you guys could move more to the front, that would be fantastic, so I can keep track of who's coming up. Okay, sure. Lined up first. You'll have 2 minutes once you start speaking. If you could just say your name for the record.
Okay. Hey, good evening. My name is Scott Case. I'm from the Uptown area. My concern that I wanted to address tonight is that the complete community high-rise buildings proposed for our historic hillside neighborhoods create fire safety risks which are not being adequately addressed. Specifically, like within Uptown, there's a Middletown neighborhood. The streets were laid out in the late 1800s. Some streets are about like 20 feet wide at most. They don't support the international fire codes for aerial ladder trucks, fire hydrants, fire lanes, and besides, we have limited hillside egress out of the area. So the big issue, I believe, is that DSB's process prevents the fire department from performing a neighborhood fire risk assessment related to these high-rise projects. The fire department is only asked to respond to specific questions and documents that they are provided. So they respond to specific questions about the fire code issue, and sometimes they'll cite, hey, here's accepted, or here's a waiver, here's a workaround. But what ends up in these kind of hillside historic communities is that there's a situation where you have multiple exceptions, and then you have derivative exceptions to support the primary exceptions. And then DSB comes through and subjectively claims that there are no major issues unless the project proceeds into a ministerial review. So when you limit questions and the review, you can control the outcome, and that's exactly what the current DSB policy is doing and putting our communities at risk. So I request that we have comprehensive neighborhood fire risk assessment for these at-risk high-rise designated areas. Now, history will look favorably on a proactive approach. We should be demanding common sense policy and action from our city leadership, and we need you to do your job here. And the tragic results are very predictable if we don't, and if insufficient action is taken. Thank you.
Scott Chipman, Pacific Beach. I've been on planning group in Pacific Beach probably off and on for about 15 years. So, I mean, how many times are we gonna listen to the complete communities completely wrecking our communities? Okay, so we have a 23-story tower in Pacific Beach, ministerial approach. Last night in Linda Vista, 90 units with some 50 parking spaces, ministerially approved. This is ridiculous. We can keep chirping amongst ourselves, or we can unite together and say, we demand complete communities be changed and give them how it should be changed. And we can demand that the state of California get rid of this ministerial approach to huge projects. Ministerial is for a carport or a fence. It's not for 90 units or 23-story tower. So I believe you are all tired of being basically diminished by the city. We've seen it for the last 5 years or more. Planning groups are not welcome to be giving input. So it's time for us all to unite and say, we will not be ignored. So figure out how you're gonna do it, but we'll help you.
I'll start your time once you're talking, if you just tell Marlon.
Sure. Thanks, Marlon. Mary Soriano, President of La Jolla Town Council. Good to see everyone again. Happy New Year's. February 13th, La Jolla Town Council is hosting the 5G cell towers. We are having them pop up on bike paths at Cliff Ridge, near playgrounds, and it may come to your town. So there's multiple groups that have formed, and we'll actually be having a town hall February 13th at the La Jolla High School auditorium, where they're expecting media there, picketers, over 100 people. So hopefully we can all join and also actually support them as well. That's February 13th, Thursday, 5:30 p.m. at the La Jolla High School auditorium. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start your time once you start talking, you just let Marlon do it.
My name is Kimberly Grogan. I'm actually going to read this. I'm not good at this kind of stuff. I live in Point Loma. Point Loma, as you know, is a well-established historical district. It's one of the oldest communities of the city. It has a peninsula on the naval base at the tip of the peninsula. It's been identified as a very high fire hazard severity zone, along with the wooded area towards town and several other locations. Permits are being, like everybody else has been saying, submitted under the guise of high density, low income for fast track approval in Point Loma and several other communities. And there's health and safety issues as well as the fire issues. Specifically with us, there's a project that's in the planning department at 1004 Rosecrans Street. It's on the corner of Rosecrans and Talbot Street. There's 53 feet between that and across the street. It's a 2-lane road. It's one of the major thoroughfares to go from the base, which has employs anywhere from 12 to 22,000 people at any one time. There's the wooded area. It's already in a high fire danger. But that's not really my only concern there. The last mobility study that's put onto the city website was conducted in 2010. And it had, the mobility study did not include major transit stops, identify which parts of Rosecrans qualifies for high quality transit corridor. Will there be a traffic study on Rosecrans? And if a fire breaks out, there's no ingress or egress, and everybody's going to be boggled down. So there's a 56 unit high rise that's getting ready to be approved in this area. And I don't know, there's no way that we're going to be able to get in and out, or will fire into the table. There's only one fire department that even handles Point Loma. Anyway, Point Loma.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Marie Saldana, and I grew up just a few blocks from here. I'm a lifelong resident, most of that time in Claremont, a resident of San Diego. And I'm very concerned about the density that is affecting every community and the lack of traffic engineering studies that go along with that as a requirement. I met today with a reporter. We've had pedestrian deaths within the last 3 weeks here in Claremont. Just within a few blocks of here, one over at Genesee and Appleton and one at Genesee and Mount Etna. So I want to encourage the planning group. I know you do this already, but every time someone comes forward, adding density and more people and more vehicle miles traveled to any community, ask if they're also going to provide a traffic engineering study. Because what we are seeing is increased numbers of not only people being injured, but car accidents and sometimes very serious high-speed car accidents on our neighborhood streets. If any of you think I look familiar, I did represent this community, city of San Diego, in the state legislature for 6 years, and I was the chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee. So we used to have a very high-level view of the types of housing and development questions that come before you at the very local level. And I appreciate the work you do. I know how challenging it can be. And we need to do better, especially when it comes to protecting the safety of people who are increasingly walking and finding out that people are not paying attention to four-way stop signs, pedestrian crosswalks. So we need more traffic calming. We need more ways to make our walkable communities not only walkable, but safely walkable. And I hope you will continue working on that as you do your reviews of increased density projects. Thank you.
My name is Jamie Saylor. I am a concerned citizen from Point Loma. I myself and a couple other people have created a nonprofit Protect the Point regarding the 1004 Rosecrans. It's a 56 unit, 4-story building with 0 parking for residents. It butts up to an elementary school, which already causes a bunch of congestion twice a day during pickup and drop off. That intersection is also the only way in and out to the naval base. We currently have no evacuation plans for Point Loma. And I just know that it will cause a huge safety issue, not only with traffic, with congestion. Like she said, Talbot is the main artery over the hill, and there's been no traffic study. There's no, like I said, no evacuation plan, and a lot of concerns. 56 units and zero. Let's think about that.
Whenever you're ready, I'll start your time.
My name is Kate Callan, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Citizens Budget Review Committee. Next month, our group, which includes community leaders from across San Diego, will host a series of 4 community-based budget review and feedback forums. Tonight, we're asking San Diego's planning group to help us get the word out. These forums will solicit input about the city's 2025-26 budget from all San Diego residents. The goal is to identify the priorities of taxpayers for how the city will allocate tax dollars. We believe public priorities for spending public funds must guide City Hall in navigating the current budget crisis. Representatives for the city's independent budget analyst office have been instrumental in supporting these town hall meetings. IBA staff will be in attendance to provide information and to answer questions. The first forum will be on Saturday, February 8th in Mission Hills. Others will be Thursday, February 13th, Southeast San Diego, Saturday, February 15th, Mission Valley, Thursday, February 20th, Mira Mesa. We have urged Mayor Gloria and all 9 council members to attend these meetings. We believe our elected officials should hear directly from their constituents about our budget and service priorities. We've sent an electronic copy of this flyer to the chair. I don't know if you've gotten it, but maybe we can attach it to the minutes. And we will follow up with planning groups citywide, so we will be in touch with all of you as much as we can when there's going to be a meeting in your area. Thank you very much.
Doreen Diaz-Pessler. I am from Skyline Paradise Hill Planning Group area. I'm not a member. Guy is my rep. I'm from the Hampshire community, and we have this project called the Lisbon Heights Project, which I have no idea how it was ever approved. They actually reviewed the Encanto Planning Group map and planning group plan to approve a project and Skyline Paradise Hill Planning Group. So when you see these spendthrift reports and it's reviewing the wrong project, does this mean that none of the planners are even reading these projects? Or is it even worse, but they're reading them and they don't even know the neighborhood of the planning group or where they're reading? But it's in a very, very high fire zone. These streets are very tiny. The 1940s when we had these tiny little cars, one per house, dead end road. And the project on 71st, right near it, they just had a fire. That house was completely burnt to the ground within 4 minutes. Thankfully, working class area, a lot of people weren't home, but 4 minutes, and that's the street over. And I'm talking streets with like 10 homes, tiny, narrow. So this project with 24 homes, they couldn't make the amount of homes they wanted if they went with the city rules for streets. So they took lot 27 and they made a private road, one way in, one way out with a huge canyon on the back. The report states that it's flat, but yet they got an exemption after the community group approved it for a 16-foot concrete wall. Why do you need a 16-foot concrete wall on a flat parcel? So this Lisbon Heights is a perfect example. If there's ever a fire, you're gonna have so many people killed. Thank you.
Do I have any more non-agenda public comment? Yeah, no.
Yes, thank you. I have a prepared statement from the community regarding item number 6. Would you rather hear?
Yeah, this non-agenda public
Understood.
comment.
I just
Thank
want
you.
some guidance, thank you.
Guy,
Yes, everybody got a bunch of handouts tonight. And I think they're all of equal importance, but the most important one is, why are we all members of a planning group? How the hell did that come about without asking us? Now, when you get an Oxford Unabridged Dictionary and you look up the terms, planning a group, committee, council, you'll see the group is really very hazy. It's got no concept whatsoever behind it. It's a bunch of people getting together unless you're in the Air Force and you're part of a bomber command or something. And I really think that we need to push back to the city and tell us, I don't know where the hell you came up with this planning group business. We are committees and we need to be identified correctly as committees. That's that part. The other thing is I handed out a flyer for the Skyline Paradise Planning Committee. And it's just a thing that all our planning committees need to come up with flyers. We need to get them in the libraries. We need to get them in the recreation centers. We need to get them perhaps in the high schools, maybe in our 2-year colleges, to see if we can attract groundswell people coming in, because quite frankly, it doesn't seem that the internet is doing the job that we think it's doing in getting people to become a member of the community. That's with all those little handouts for different things that are floating around. It's been 2 months since the meeting, so it's taken a while to put together. That's it.
thank you, Guy. I saw Andrea.
So I wanted to first thank you, CPC, for the support that you gave us. You got us as far as we got. 4 months after the discovery of footnote 7, it was removed prospectively. So I'm wearing yellow. There are other people here wearing yellow. So that happened. We were disappointed that it was not removed retroactively. So those projects that were relying on it, which is still our position, is unlawful, will at this point go forward. And as part of the deal, as you will say, is that our city council member Foster made a 2-part motion to take a look at pausing the AU program until it can get into compliance with environmental law and some other things. So we were happy about that. And he was able to use that to kind of say no and leave that council, in my opinion, to not remove footnote 7 retroactively. But it's a mixed bag and we would not have gotten it without CPC. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up. Anyone else? First, I see you. Oh, yeah.
I wanted to know when we were gonna revisit the budget request to increase our stipends. We didn't talk about it in November, and
came up with certain things, but then we said we were gonna come back, and I was sort of expecting it to be on this month's agenda, but we do need to talk about that.
Okay.
Because I've talked to the input from different people with some good ideas, and I think we should, continue with our thoughts and development.
Okay, wonderful. I don't think I've heard a response from planning on it yet, because I did send a letter to Heidi, so maybe next month, and maybe I'll press her for more of a response, so we have something a little bit more to talk about.
Maybe we could even cut down on some.
Okay, anyone else, non-agenda public comment before we get going? Okay, wonderful. Approval of the minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes? Were there any changes to the minutes that were sent out with the agenda? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you, and then I had a second. Okay, I will go through everyone who I caught that was here at the end of it. If you came in late, let me know. Encanto, approval of the minutes.
Yes.
City Heights.
Abstain, I was absent.
Okay, college area,
Yes.
downtown,
Yes.
eastern area,
Yes.
Linda Vista. Approved. Mira Mesa,
Approved.
Mission Beach. Okay. Yep, Mission Valley,
And
not here. Navajo,
approved.
awesome. Normal Heights,
Approved.
North Park, Ocean Beach votes yes. Okay, Mesa,
Abstain.
okay. Pacific Beach,
Abstain.
Peninsula,
Abstain after.
Rancho Bernardo.
Thank you, Rack was here, she approved the minutes and we approved.
Okay, great. Scripps Ranch.
Approved.
Thank you. Skyline Paradise Hills. Guy, the minutes.
Yes, I'm looking at this thing and it says approval of minutes of November 19th. And the draft meeting minutes are for the meeting of Tuesday, November 20th. So when,
That was just brought by.
We had it on Wednesday. That was mine.
That matter?
Sorry, the agenda's wrong. The minutes aren't. I apologize. We had a meeting on
anyway,
Wednesday.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here.
Okay, thank you. Torrey Pines. University,
Yes.
Uptown.
Yes. David.
Oh, great. Okay, okay, we will move on to the mobility master plan. Phil?
So should be able to catch up on time. I have about 10 minutes of a. Well, good evening, everyone. We were here back, and I'm looking at my notes, I think it was April 2023, so it's been a little bit of time. Wanted to catch you up on the activities about what is the mobility master plan. I think we've had some conversations with your communities and some of your community-based organizations, but we're getting close to asking for council adoption. So wanted to share this important effort. It's very, as the title is sort of the master plan, the comprehensive mobility plan. It's a first of its kind effort, so we took quite a while to put this together. It is kind of still growing up. It's getting toward where we want it to be ultimately, but in a nutshell, what this brings all 52 of your community planning areas and looks at mobility solutions, kind of going in and through and across your communities to look at comprehensive approaches that address safety, accessibility, and sustainability as we provide solutions, both from capital infrastructure and also on the programmatic side. So next slide. So what is the kind of the bits and pieces of this? So again, it's a comprehensive mobility plan, looking at a balance of all transportation and mobility improvements across the city, looking at investments at first areas with greatest needs. So I'll explain how we did a data analysis for that, and kind of a proof of concept for this type of comprehensive plan. I would say, and maybe just to get right to it, right, this does not replace your community plan updates and the mobility technical analysis that's included in them. It kind of is a hub to bring in all those existing plans and talk about opportunities to address transportation. Because we know most of our trips aren't within your community alone. You're going to work, you're going to other communities, and sometimes there's travel through your communities by people, those trips that are associated outside on either end of the trip. We're looking at collecting and addressing other plans in the city. So Vision Zero is one of those efforts to address safety. And then also our climate action plan. This was one of the near-term actions from the climate action plan to address comprehensive mobility. So looking at, that's perfect. We're at a really interesting time. I'm sure a lot of you have been involved in these efforts. I'm kind of putting the mobility master plan in the center here, but connecting to the climate action plan, which was updated in 2022, so fairly recently. Blueprint San Diego, the big general plan that was done last summer. A complete streets policy looking at safe mobility options all the way curb to curb for different for complete streets. And then the street design manual, which was actually just released this last December. So previously, just to give a couple examples, if you wanted to build a bike lane, the protected bike lanes, you had to go through the exceptions process. Now those types of best practices across the country, and even ones that we've been doing in the city, are included in the actual design documentation manual of the city in this draft that we put out. So all this kind of connects to, as you would imagine, right, connects to mobility. And a lot of these types of things happen once in every, even like general plans, every 2-3 decades, right? So interesting time for the city for a lot of the work to sort of surround and support multimodal transportation thinking. Next slide. So we did a lot of outreach, as I said, and we took our time with this to demonstrate this proof of concept and what would a comprehensive transportation plan look like for the city of San Diego. So we worked with various community-based organizations, with different community planning groups, with CPC, mostly through our mobility board, which is representatives from different districts and at-large members talking through major mobility initiatives in the city. But we went out around and kind of met people where they were, right? So we had library pop-ups. We did a couple phases of those. We did some survey work, really trying to understand what are the mobility needs, like what best meets the resident and visitor needs across the city. Next slide. So to kind of talk forward to where we are now, so we put a plan out that the developed focus areas talked about mobility programs. I'll explain what that is. But for those that have been kind of tracking this effort, definitely wanted to share what's updated. So we had people asked about sustainability and equity and safety. What does that mean, like individually, right? What is that? What are we doing with those concepts in terms of mobility solutions? So we tease that out, kind of explain more with the individual summary sheets. And then we added community profiles. So more definition and details at each different focus area were added to kind of tell the story about what mobility needs are from those different lenses, from safety, from sustainability, and equity and balance in the transportation system. We added just recently a project implementation chapter. So a lot of people have asked through the process, how does like the old Schoolhouse Rock, how it built becomes a law? How does the transportation project go from a need that's identified by the community all the way through construction and operations and ultimately maintenance? So we have a chapter explaining all of that, nuts and bolts. And then we looked at kind of a refresh view of a near and long-term actions. This is a long-range plan, also a comprehensive plan, and then included an updated financial assessment. And then even the last 3 months, as we're getting toward asking our ATI committee for a recommendation, we updated some components that are pretty new for the city, right? Where there was an updated University City community plan last summer, along with the Hillcrest Focus Plan. So those projects were brought into this effort, or just recently have been folded in. We have a new University City whole focus area page. Previously, it was like the segments of the plan, the community plan itself, but looking more within the lens of the focus areas and kind of aligning all of that. And then we added a roadway resurfacing program. So probably familiar, when the city goes out and puts new slurry and asphalt, there's an opportunity to add mobility improvements, either missing sidewalks, or mostly it's been protected bike lanes. So wanted to explain how that happens and what that is, and as an opportunity for the city to provide more benefits when you're going out and you're topping the road anyways, and you're going to repaint it anyway. Can you improve it? So that's just a little bit of a feel for what's happened over the last several months with the updates. Next slide. But drilling into the plan a bit, if you're interested in these safety, equity, sustainability conversations about the plan, we have full pages if you're, and I'll make sure you have the latest link to the plan through Marlin. And then this is like an example. It's not meant to read everything, but this is like a 2-page spread of the focus area. So if you have a focus area within your community planning group, Looking at how that was identified, the data that went into that, and then the projects that come from your community plan that are included in those. Next slide. So project development, I mentioned we have a whole chapter dedicated to, how projects become projects, right? And how they get constructed. So, as a city, it's complicated, right? We're 1.5 million as a city, and a lot of different departments that have different objectives, right? And often it's hard to look across those departments. So this effort did that, addressed, where city planning fits in. I'm from sustainability and mobility department, looking at the long range planning. We also have a transportation department, right, that does those operational improvements, engineering capital projects when there is capital dollars to spend, bigger infrastructure projects, and then development services doing all permitting. So, how does that, all different types of mobility improvements go through those different lenses or needs or addressed by each department, right? As residents, we're all thinking, well, a project's just, that's a solution for me to get from A to B, right? But we don't often think about that. But so we wanted to kind of expand that aperture a bit and to understand, well, break down those walls and say, well, how do projects actually get built? And then from programming, going from need to prioritization to budgeting, and then ultimately implementation and monitoring and maintenance. So it seems like this is like, obvious and straightforward, but we didn't really have a conversation about that. So we've added that, and you don't really have that in your community plans because you talk about, within those boundaries typically, right? So next slide. So that's new. But going back to like how we develop the projects, this was trying to bring together existing plans, mostly more recent ones that had more projects, and identifying like hot spots for mobility needs, mostly in underinvested communities. So we kind of see this a little bit of where we added that we had a lot of information from the blueprint activities, from the climate equity index, lots of all the safety metrics and analysis for serious injuries, fatalities, a lot of different data points that we could stack together and make heat maps, and drew some up to say, is there a proof of concept here? Are there some underinvested communities where there's just really drastic, need for mobility solutions? And then adding evaluation and doing a quantitative process to ultimately get to a project list. So that's sort of the formula here. In some ways, that's being demonstrated in the plan. Next slide. And then again, stacking that data together, bringing that project list that I kind of ended with there. This is the types of projects. So we have sidewalks, bikeways, traffic signal improvements, traffic calming and slow street, pedestrian projects, transit improvements. So addressing that interconnectivity amongst modes, right? Once you're doing something different than driving, there's a lot of connections that need to be made, right? Next slide. So this is the mobility programs. This is really interesting. We're one of the first kind of comprehensive transportation plans in the country to sort of talk about this. I always say it's like the mortar and the bricks are the glue that connects capital infrastructure together. What we might be my programs is different ways to operate the transportation system or add incentives. So like transit fare subsidies, that's not building a new transit line, but that's giving a free bus pass where more people can use that service in their neighborhood. Sometimes it's the technology that connects it together. It also can be neighborhood shuttles and doing things that are supported in different ways, not just MTS providing a bus. How can you provide shuttles? And so the upper right, we've added a couple over the last year, some wayfinding that's very much community scale, connecting to the land use and all the different businesses and cultural institutions to that travel. So you don't feel like you have to jump in your car to maybe, go to that next place. You understand where things are. That's sort of the concept, obviously, of wayfinding. And then transportation demand management, how you can collect those different resources to carpool and have different ways to get around. So if you so choose. Next slide. So that's what we mean by mobility program. So yeah, hopefully that's my 10 minutes, just a little bit of overview, but wanted to talk about what's next for this plan. So we're sharing this across, kind of resharing this again and talking about the updates. We'll go to active transportation and infrastructure next month and ask for council recommendation, and that we expect to be around the March timeframe. Going to some more boards. I think we're back to the mobility board, or just went there. To the climate advisory board next month, accessibility advisory board, who we've engaged with throughout. And then I've been having a really interesting conversations with community-based organizations about looking at, now that we have focus areas and community pages where it's like, is this the story this community wants to tell? Quick aside is that one of the reasons why cities have this, in fact, SANDEC, the regional agency, is forced to have this based on federal rules. One reason you have these things is it's the story of why you need transportation improvements. So when you can go for those elusive state or federal, probably shrinking federal dollars now, but state dollars, for this kind of stuff and for real meaningful improvements, you can use a plan like this and point to a page and say, this is the story. This is what you're asking. If you're asking for safety, here it is. If you're asking for sustainability, here it is. So I would say that's been very helpful to engage at the community level to really understand, are we telling that story? It's a joint, it's us and the community telling that story together. We have a data viewer. We're trying to make this stuff really easy. Again, we didn't have a way that the public can understand how projects are built. So along that lines, we want to have a data viewer that's a one-stop shop for where are your existing bikeways and transit all the way through what's in the plans, right? For your community and where you go, right? Where you work or where you typically travel to. So it's an easy way if you use the CIP web maps, even trying to do that in a more simplistic way, but having those different layers of different transportation services and resources at your fingertips in a easy to kind of understand what geospatial tool. So that would be an online kind of thing. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, ATI committee recommendation, council adoption, and then working toward program implementation. We all know the dollars are scarce, right? This has prioritization. It talks about the needs. It enables us to try to go for more discretionary, sort of competitive state and federal funding, and then monitoring. Are we getting the results that we wanted to when we started this initiative? So it kind of is soup to nuts in terms of the comprehensive nature of it, both for the whole city, for all trips, but also moving forward, like looking 5 years out, and hopefully 20, 30 years out. So that's it for me, but if any questions or comments? Yeah.
Oh, no,
sorry.
sorry. Yeah, it's okay. We'll start with the
Mike.
public questions or comments. Yes.
I do.
No, we're gonna start with public first and then we'll go to board. Thank you. Yeah.
All the way up.
Yeah, Mr. Trom, could you explain what kind of communication there is with communities?
Step to the middle. So we can.
Okay, could you explain what kind of communication there is with communities before bike lanes are added or parking spaces are taken away?
Yeah, a great question, Arthur, the chair. So bike lanes in a couple different ways, right? They can go through the engineering capital projects that do new projects, or through, as I mentioned, through roadway resurfacing efforts. And so those draw upon your community plans where you have a bike network and what's included in the plan, or through the bike master plan, which has been a dated effort. I think we have it, it's over 10 years old, 2013, I think. We're updating that now, and we should have a refresh one citywide in the next sort of year and a half. So that will draw upon that. So we're kind of in that interim phase, but it's drawing, there is still a valid bike master plan, it's called. And then the community plans, as you have more recent ones, they've identified different types of bike lanes.
Yeah. Hi, could you explain the removal of one parking space per ADU for Sustainable Development Committee? Community, and also there's a section in there that removes the owner occupancy in ADUs, and they were in the mobility, didn't say master plan, but they were part of the mobility plan. And our plan is 1986 and does not have any bike. People were still in our neighborhood pretty much riding horses. You could see horses up to 2010. So if you could answer any of those.
Unfortunately, on the ADU side, that's a different team that follows that. I know, like, from speaking through land use connection, I can talk about that, but I think that would be more of something to follow up with the planning department about.
Okay, even though the language is coming from the mobility plan?
I don't think it is, but I'd like to make sure you have that information, and committee, if desired, has that.
Okay.
I know there is different efforts that have happened through the city that have touched on, like there's a strategic plan that's talking about mobility.
Okay.
This one is really trying to, like, unfortunately dated, right? Are you in the eastern area?
Yeah, and well, I'm in the Skyline.
Skyline, yeah.
Skyline Paradise Hills, and it's part of the VNT plan to reduce auto.
Yeah.
Section of the mobility plan that helps reduce autos.
480, okay. Yeah, I don't know if I don't have that information, but maybe just to kind of touch upon the, especially the older community plans. That's one of the reasons we looked at the programs to sort of support areas that don't have updated thinking for transportation solutions. Also, maybe as a secondary sort of, sphere of that conversation is looking at the plan through older transportation investments it's challenging, but as we move forward, like this is like the first of its kind. When we have more, I guess, more time, and if this works and this is something to build upon, we can look at all communities, even if you have an outdated plan, we can supersede that or include like a mobility technical analysis for everyone. Even if you have even when new communities, refresh those, and then especially areas that haven't been addressed with updated.
Like something like complying with ADU, we could start. doing
Yeah, I think it would be a more broader. I think for example, Sandag does this work and they do it kind of long range, but they spend 4 years and lots of millions of dollars to do it. We did this on kind of a shoestring just to figure out if this was something that would help the city, right? Find more.
All right, well, I appreciate that, because benches have been around for quite some time. And
Do we have any other public comments or questions for the mobility master plan before I go to board? Okay, yeah.
Kathleen Neal of the Boyd Community Planning Group. I'm just a member of that group. I'm very concerned, Mr. Cron. It's great that you come here. These comprehensive plans at the city level are exciting for the mayor's office. They make for great moments to stand up and talk about how we're ahead of the country. But truthfully, when I look at capital improvement project and I try to get involved, it's usually in a developed area already. It's a transportation thing. They're trying to cure a problem, often safety. And it seems very hard to work with staff to get them to incorporate the aspects you're talking about, to improve the bicycle experience, to improve the pedestrian. I just feel like some of this doesn't trickle down. So anything you can do to try to, in the projects now going out there for capital improvement, to get those conversations going so that we get better projects instead of just trying to solve one little problem and get that project off the board. Thank you.
Thank you. One more call for public comment before I go to board. Okay, great. I'm going to start over with Marcella and work my way around. Do you have any questions? Mission Beach, North Park. I know you jumped in.
I'm in North Park and I love to see the ideas for University City and all those other areas. But we've had the growth, we've had the stuff, and we're dying for mobility to be fixed. Another thing, I think one of the things, there's two things. One is when you're looking at mobility things and you bring that list of sidewalks or this, that, and the other, streetlights. Streetlights, if you want people to go, you never get started. And streetlights, people are afraid to go out on the roads, can't see, especially the driving. Cars aren't going to go away. Maybe in 2 more generations, we'll have a lot of them. But right now, you can't get places with the other things. I think I said this months ago, and I've been thinking about it. If you're going to be building, you've got these neighborhoods, we've got old streets, we've got new streets. But if you bring in like 500 residents, 500 apartments, condos, whatever you want to call them, you're bringing in 500 to 750. You're bringing in from 500 to, at the least 500 to 750 people. That's a lot of people. On the higher side, you're probably bringing in 1,000 to 2,500 people. There's all your needs for mobility. The city needs to come back, look at what's going on because there's an increase of cars. And then the cars are still already 500 to 2,000 cars coming into those people. And they're not all going to get rid of them. So you need to come in and do the mobility, make the sidewalks safer, make it safer to be out and about, make it safer to get to mass transit. Put the mass transit in there. We don't have any of those things. So I think the city should think about this and take it step by step by step. And then go build another project rather than bringing in 1,000 things and then we're lost, we're drowning with our needs.
Thank you. Peninsula?
Yeah, I just echo on the public commenter, that you need to reconcile these old plans with the new uncontrolled density that we're having. And just, echo on the back of North Park, you know, we've got density, and I just hope that this is taken into account. We're not even doing the project, we don't even know what's coming most of the time. And we need to make sure that people see their,
City Heights? Skyline Paradise Hills?
Yes, question number one, in doing the research for this, did you use access?
Access the software.
Access, publication put out by the University of California deals with transportation issues, been in existence, I don't know, 50 years. Okay, next question is, do you realize that the job of the government going way back to 1770 or whatever was to build roads? Not to provide carriages for the roads, not to provide horses for the roads, and here we are, we have taken private buses and made it government, and we're running a government bus service that can't pay for itself, doesn't go where anybody wants to go, and is obviously being run by people who never crossed the 5 or the 805 or the 15 during rush hour, or actually during most of the damn day. And when you look at that, you look at all the different people and all the different cars going here and there, they have to go 40, 50 miles for work in many cases. And it doesn't matter whether they're going north or going south, and we say, well, we're gonna have them all ride buses. The focus is wrong. Just get the hell out of the bus business, sell it off, let the private industry figure out what to do with it, and then perhaps they'll go back to jitneys, which might serve the city much better than these truthfully gold-plated buses we have. We've been asking for sidewalks, not improving sides. We've been asking for sidewalks since we discovered, when the county took over Paradise Hills, when the county let the city annex Paradise Hills, county didn't require sidewalks because it was rural. The city never put the damn things in. When it was brought to their attention in 1996, well, we're still waiting. We're still waiting. So. That's all I got.
Thank you, Guy. Linda Vista?
Yeah, I just want to follow up. Yeah. I just want to follow up on a question that we asked by an attendee here, related to public engagement with on bike lanes, adding bike lanes and taking away parking spaces. It seemed like you answered the first part and you deferred to the bike master plan, but could you specifically address public engagement where you're taking away on-street parking? As an example, I know that in my neighborhood, the Riverwalk project actually removed on-street parking that our neighborhood, north of Riverwalk on the north side of Friar Stop is very vital. So could you please address the second part of the attendee question on community engagement and removing on-street parking?
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's a, I hate to talk about those silos, right, of the different departments. So there's the transportation department that does the slurry work, and that's when there's the noticing and the conversation about replacing or looking at. I know there's been some conversion of side street parking like to angled parking to get more spaces to mitigate for the ones that are lost if there's protected bike lanes. Sometimes creative treatments where there's more mixing zones added, especially when you have a lot of signal. So I'm aware of like the conversation. We have a team. I manage the long range mobility team. We have a curb and parking team that's a separate staff that is asked to engage in those efforts and saying, okay, well, we're putting in a protected bike lane, we're going to lose 20 spaces. What are the different strategies? So I'm aware of that. I don't work in that space specifically, but I know there's a conversation as what are the tools in the toolkit to either manage parking differently, to encourage more access and turnover, if it's a retail area or something like that, or replacing it with more parking like in an adjacent area. And accessibility too, like we have an ADA team in our department, just like we have the parking team that looks at making sure that the ADA spaces are provided or replaced or added if they weren't there compliant to the Americans with Disabilities Act. Just like
Are removed, have anything to do with your department?
No,
What department is it?
that's the parking, the curb management, that's within sustainability and mobility, but it's the curb management. Division.
Thank you. Rancho Bernardo?
Would you go over the timeframe of the public hearings on this?
Oh, sure, yeah, so active transportation infrastructure, I believe that date is set for February 20th. And then tentative on council for March 24th or 25th. That's, I think the active transportation infrastructure is a more certain date and trying to find space on council. I believe March is a lot of council meetings, so I don't know if this is the time.
Mission Valley?
Mission Valley definitely welcomes all the transportation, but I think the plan looks pretty good.
Eastern area?
I think you really need to add a car to your vision here on your. I don't see cars. Most of us are still driving cars and we have cars, as many people have already said. Because the other transportation modes don't make it. Number two is, have you guys started looking at getting the some people do use bikes for transportation, but more use bikes for recreation. So having bike trails and bike, long bike rides from one neighborhood to another that aren't on the streets, but can just actually be recreation and maybe travel, for a parallel to a street or something, but really be off the road where they can ride side by side and talk and have their outdoor fun experience. And the recreation experience is probably gonna really be necessary, because like you said, we've been doing this bike stuff for 10 years. And the bikes really haven't taken off. They have really been in recreation mode. And if there's the bike clubs and they need safe access, but they're once again, these big groups of people. So I would like to see more emphasis put on bikes being recreation. Not so much mobility, because though some do use it for transportation, really not so much. And then this update is completely separate than the plan. Does the plan now include all these updates if we were to go online?
And that's my bad, it's all one thing. So we had a draft release in 2023 in October, we refreshed it, and then we're doing these final inclusion of like bringing in the most recent planning efforts from the communities to bring a final, I think we're just gonna call it the mobility master plan, but next month. So it's all one thing, sorry, that was.
Thank you. Torrey Pines?
Thank you for presenting. It's kind of brave. So I'm the Torrey Pines group, and I don't think anybody came to talk to us, but we're very small, and I understand that. But we kind of are left out of a lot of the planning, and I don't know if that's a good thing or bad. But in Marble Valley, my kids went to high school there. We were right on Delmar Heights Road. We have 3 high schools, 3 shopping centers, and it's kind of craziness. It would be nice for kids to use their bikes, and a lot of the kids do use, well, they all use electrical bikes now, but they do use the bike. And it's not really safe for them. That Delmar Heights Road, part of it is like a freeway. It's 3 lanes, and it's very fast. Part I'm closer to goes down to 2 lanes, but the people still drive like it's 3 lanes. I think it's very well, and when I look at these plans, it's like, well, that's well intentioned, but there's not some thought that it's just missing. It's because you guys don't live in some of the neighborhoods, so you don't really know. I don't know why there's not a bus route on Delmar Heights Road. And I love the trolley, and like, I'd like to take it more often, but if you're not going to some place right on the trolley, sometimes it's hard. Like, it'd be nice for me to take the blue line to Balboa and then have a bus ride closer to here. And you can do that. I love public transportation. I worry about climate change, and I'd like to use it more often. In our neighborhood, we don't have sidewalks either for half our neighborhood. And right now we have a new group, our planning group is trying to figure
out a way that kids can go to school. You know, on the sidewalk, but they don't really have sidewalks. Part of the here, part of they don't, and people don't want to give up the front of their property to put a sidewalk in, and we don't even know how to, you know, so. If there's somebody, if give me the name of somebody that our planning group could talk to the city about getting a sidewalk, I'm really afraid that if someone is gonna, some child is gonna get hit. And we got, we're supposed to get a new traffic light to help them cross from the kids cross the street from one area to the other. They put the traffic light in, but now we're told they can't turn it on because there's no electrification, no electrifying thing without trenching under the street. And they gave us a 2-year hold. So I've seen this so much in the city where like one department doesn't talk to another department. That's all I have to say. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're within your time. Downtown.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation. I appreciate the focus on safety. There's, you know, safety for things that move the road, safety for pedestrian safety, and trolley safety. Appreciate that focus. I think it's a good thing that they move traffic. I mean, the parking away curves so that pedestrians have better line of sight, so it's safety. But in the process, of course, we use parking spaces. I think one of the answers to that is looking at parking efficiency. I like the district diagonal parking. So that's very quick for people to pull into and out of. There's nothing more frustrating than parallel parking from some of these roads. It doesn't work. But I appreciate that. But seeing traffic lights would be very helpful. So maybe I go up and down Broadway where I live, and sometimes the traffic lights go against me, sometimes they go with me. And it seems like time of day would be a reasonably available solution right now. And the last point is regarding walkability. Thank you for the efforts on that. Downtown has many areas that we'd like to improve with crosswalks and other things. But there's been a lot of good response to that. So thank you.
Navajo.
Yes, thank you. I'll make it quick and thanks for the years we mentioned. So this isn't a direct to you, but it's just something for all of us to think about because I think we have a duty to even at large. But I was going to mention that Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, is buying more shares of Occidental Petroleum. So my point being is, he's betting on automobiles. I know they have other technologies, but he's a pretty successful guy, his team, and they're betting on automobiles, and we're not. We're betting against them. City of single you are. But my point being is that Berkshire uses private funds to make their bets. Maybe there's some public pensions in there, but they use their money to make bets. Here, you're using taxpayer dollars to bet against what might help the community succeed the most. And I bet you everybody in this room got here in an automobile. Okay, and I not to be too antagonistic, but if there is bus stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got here in an automobile and I enjoy driving over because that's a part of my little American dream. But the point being is, if you're making bets on behalf of taxpayers here in San Diego, you need to bet on things, not you, but the city needs to bet on things that will help people here to succeed. And I believe that Berkshire is betting on automobiles. We're not. We may come up on the short end. So let's bet on things that, I mean, we're using their tax dollars to make these bets. We have a duty, we have an extraordinary duty to the taxpayer to make the right bets.
Thank you, Scripps Ranch.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We really appreciate it. I echo a lot of the sentiments that are here. I'm obviously from an area that we're pretty much 100% personal vehicle. Are spread out, we're far from anything. We don't have a bus line. We don't have anything. The one capital improvement project in the mobility area that we asked for is a bike lane, that's secure bike lane going down our main street in Pomeroy. We've never had it, and it doesn't even seem like it's anywhere close to being considered. But yeah, we are receiving bike lanes in neighborhoods that don't want them. So we're not, you know, from our community standpoint, it's hard to listen. I mean, we appreciate, because we also use the rest of everybody's communities too. So we appreciate a lot of that. But as it affects Scripps Ranch and those that are 100% vehicle relying, the one thing I think that
it's hard for us to get through the fact that our streets aren't paved. So before we start talking about all these great things, or not before, but while we're doing this, how are we gonna get the actual streets that the vehicles are working on and that we are using? Just up to standards that we don't have to, you know, get our train, you know, the alignment fixed every, 6 months because of potholes in the street. So it's hard to focus on all the little stuff when we need that infrastructure, that main street paved. And then we can concentrate on it. So I thank you and appreciate, I know you've got, it's a tough situation, tough solution, and a lot of needs that are out there. Thank you.
And maybe just share, if they didn't come to you, the transportation department did the pavement management plan, which is their like sort of operational plan like this. And it used to be 1 year at a time, and they made that 5 years to add more strategy and sort of leverage connections to often gaps that are created through that process to connect, roads and such. So that if you're interested in that, that's called a pavement management plan, and it's available. And like I said, it's been more of a strategy that's been applied to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna echo the basic concern that one of the public commenters made. What has been the strategy for public engagement and engagement with all of the other stakeholders like NTS and Caltrans? Because the way this thing is siloed, which you referenced, it makes it really not accessible to try to figure out who we talk to about what. And every time we ask you a question, and it's not personal here, people come here and they give us these broad master plan, and we ask them about specifics. I mean, I could go through a list of things in my neighborhood as well. I mean, we don't have great separation on our main street, so that people are risking their lives just going to the library, going to the shopping center, because the trolley is going right near our crosswalks. We have probably the worst streets, or close to the worst streets in the entire city, and we don't have sidewalks. We probably do more walking because we make use of public transportation more than anybody else. We don't feel like our vehicles, like our buses and trolleys are as well maintained. We have to litter where there are bus stops. We have a multiple list of problems. But I would anticipate that if I were to ask you those questions, you would say, well, that belongs to this department, and that belongs here. And I encourage you to go talk to them. What plan do you have to make the actual engagement with the public accessible and just simple enough to actually engage?
It's very helpful to have engaged groups in the community. So like you have the Urban Collaborative Project, which really helped us out understand the whole needs of the eastern area and Canto, the whole Euclid 54th corridor and the Euclid trolley. So we had several pop-up events at Malcolm X Library. The whole team there at UCP Foster's, Councilmember Foster's office, rolled their sleeves up, and we wanted that. We wanted that engagement throughout, because that it helped us tell the story. A lot of us in our team, a small team, I think 12 of us, live in different communities. We have some insight, but understanding the community's needs directly from the community was super important. And then, like I would say, in that area, from exactly where you're talking about, we realized, and this is just to be super candid, right? We had the eastern area, and it Canada was a relatively recent community plan, eastern area, not so much. And I used to live in Oak Park and travel on a bike and all around trying to take the 955, and it's tough. I totally get it. And that was one of the reasons I had a personal desire to understand it better. But we pulled projects from the community plan, and some of those were done as part of utility trenching. That didn't fully realize the planned projects. And I guess that probably happens a little bit more than we all think it does. And those community members were able to say, yeah, that, where's that project, and pointed to it. And we said, oh, that was done as part of this, PUD project, water project. And it wasn't. It may be part of it, a signal, or maybe half of the bike lane or something. So we were able to basically double the projects in that area with those community members that were able to and willing to meet with us. So I think that's one of our proudest moments in this plan, is to build those relationships. And I know out of the gate, we had skeptical members galore saying, yeah, we're an underinvested community. You're not helping us. You haven't helped us. And we really were able to break through and sit down and have multiple hour conversations about these needs. So I mean, I get kind of emotional about that topic, because I hear well, you're just going to pawn me off to another community member, or or another department. And that's precisely what we're trying not to do here. Because these solutions matter for everyone. I would say, like, to the Warren Buffett thing, like, we're investing in people, not in stocks and bets and gambles. It's about solutions, and 40,000 people die on our roadways now nationwide every year. And it's awful, and safety is a big issue. And I could get into my personal reasons why I do this work.
Okay, that's
Well,
not pertinent to the conversation.
I guess,
Be behind time, so.
sorry for, and I'll keep mine, but what I wanted to just share, this really matters to this team. And I want to make sure you understand that we've had very heart-to-heart conversations with community members that care just as much as you.
One follow-up question. Just where can I go to see the metrics on your public engagement in the various areas?
Yeah, so we have a community involvement chapter. So we'll share that with Marlon, and there's a whole write-up about all the work. And then each focus area, so I think your area is focus area 2. There's a whole community page about the outreach and the feedback that we receive.
Sarah Mesa?
Yeah. Where does the funding gonna come with it? Are you relying on the federal and state funding, like ultimately, if this project goes to get approved and you've got a lot of work to do?
Yeah.
So where's that funding? Is it gonna be federal and
So-
state or?
Yeah, and that was an interesting thing we had about like the project, like obviously with community plans, you all develop project lists for different modes, and you're familiar with that. Those projects usually don't have a ranking or a priority, nor do they have a cost associated. So that was one thing we added, was a cost here, and then a financial chapter that talked through the city's budget, how the general fund is broken out, and where funding is eligible for transportation or not. In addition, there was a conversation about where state funds and federal funds come into play. Like in Sandag's plan, for example, they touch upon 30 funding sources. We talk mostly about the general plan, or general fund. But there's chapter, it's now, because we added the project implementation chapter, it's chapter 10, I believe. And again, one that we'll get through with Marlon, that really dissects it and answers that question. Where's the money coming? Where does it come from? No, it's short. I mean, like, it's a very light plan. I mean, it's not one of these, like, that's the old plans of long ago. This stuff is very to the point, and it talks through where the dollars are. It's using the 5-year projection. The first version we had just the 1-year budget. Now we have the 5-year budget in there. So hopefully, yeah, and reach out. Like all of our contact information is on the website. If you can't understand it or want more information, we definitely want that.
A lot of unfunded safety stuff and a lot of stuff. And you said that you're gonna look at some of the improvement stuff and kind of match them up. I mean, that's probably years already. We just sitting on an unfunded safety, a crosswalk for the school, and we have to wait for that. We have to get on. That is what my feeling is.
Yeah, and that was that's one thing about having prioritization and talking about needs to go to align with operational, like roadway maintenance projects, or with additional funding resources where you could talk to the need. Yeah.
In every.
Yeah, so the brass tacks is the community plan projects, where they are in the focus areas, at least for this plan. They've been given a cost and ranked based on safety, sustainability, and equity criteria. And then that is theoretically on the top of the list. If there's dollars available, it's, well, let's do those projects first. Let's do the project first that effectiveness change. Right. So that's the math behind.
Uptown.
Thank you very much for coming and presenting here. I know it's a tough job speaking in front of all these people. We're all passionate about our neighborhoods. I'll echo, I think, what a lot of people are saying here about vehicles, about safety. You know, vehicles are a big issue. Everybody drives a car in San Diego. It's not Copenhagen. It's not flat land everywhere. We can't ride bikes everywhere. You know, we're cut off and intersected by freeways and highways everywhere. So, you know, the city really has not created a master plan to be able to get people around. And at the same time, take away our vehicles. So I think that, you know, we need to stop taking away parking spaces and roadway people parking. That's super important, especially for people in uptown and downtown. As far as community engagement goes, you guys have come to our meetings. We really do appreciate that. When we were going through the uptown master plan, though, I felt like our concerns were largely ignored. You came to our meetings, you could take notes, you could listen, but nothing was ever actually implemented into the community plan, into the mobility plan that went into Uptown. So, you know, I know that you guys are working on a grand scale, you got a lot of places to work on, a lot of things, but I think you need to remember that these are neighborhoods that, you know, you really need to take input from the people who live in these neighborhoods hard. So I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Normal Heights.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for being here and walking into the Lions Den. Please help yourself to a donut. I'll start with the micro audio. I'll pile on this. Let's just comment. I'm not familiar with buses that have the cantilevered overhead wires. Just saying. So.
Oh, that's the corn on the bridge.
No,
Anyways,
that's okay. Yeah.
Paul.
So.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
I thought that was.
So
I didn't draw this.
I'm just gonna echo Lynn's comments from North Park about street lighting. We've done a study within Normal Heights and found where the street lighting is missing from the streets. There's a certain standard and we're not meeting that standard currently. And I've also seen this in University Heights, so I'm very interested in that. I'll move up into the tactical operational. I just recently received a NORA request for repaving 3 sections of streets within Normal Heights. One of them was repaved last year. So they're going to repave that street, but they're going to miss one that hasn't been paved since 1985. It doesn't make sense. So I'm working with the project manager to work through that. But looking at the Acela map of the street conditions, there's errors. The street that I live on was repaved 2 years ago, and it says it was repaved in 1990 before I even moved into the neighborhood. So I'm starting to call into question the accuracy of the data, and then how crews are being deployed to work on the streets. So I'll leave you with that. The other thing I'd like to see is a move from the siloed approach in this process of planning. I get that we have to look at each element individually, like mobility or housing, but then we're not looking at the overall integration of those elements with a real hard look towards carrying capacity. So we're seeing, like, well, we're going to build all these houses, and then the parking plan is separate from that. And so is the transportation plan. They should all be integrated, because what we're seeing in Normal Heights is that Adams Avenue is creating a bottleneck on the 15 freeway every day, and it's just getting worse. So I think that carrying capacity really needs to be understood, as well as obviously our wildfire interface, which I'll be presenting on later. I would also invite you to our February 4th meeting. It's next week, Tuesday. Our topic is going to be mobility and public safety. We've had some close calls with traffic, and there'll be a period of testimony for people in the neighborhood to tell their stories, and then we'll follow that up with a presentation from SD Bike on bike lanes and mobility, and then we'll finish that out with a presentation on the city processes for how the city funds, identifies those processes. So one of our board members has done that research. So you're welcome to attend. I can't guarantee donuts.
Make sure that's Normal Heights.
Normal Heights, yes.
Thank you.
Nothing more to add.
Great. College?
Yeah, I'll be real brief. The college area, we did review the 2023 version. We actually liked a lot of it, but we had a lot of questions. That gets the public engagement part. I specifically reached out to the mobility department saying, hey, we want someone to come to our next meeting because we had a lot of questions. Some of you answered today about the empty dollar sign figures and stuff. And we were told, no, we don't go to the community group meetings. We have these other meetings we can go to. That was a little disconcerting. But other than that, we really did like the plan.
You're going through a community plan update.
Yeah, we are
now, right?
And that's why we wanted some of those questions asked.
Chris?
Okay, so from university, thanks for the information on the focus page and in the document. So I assume that's in the main document, not the appendix.
Yeah, and if you open it now, you'll see the pages from your community plan, each like the bike, the pet. That will now look like with the focus area with the data-driven approach and then the project list. So that's the new, that will be out when the ATI, the active.
Okay, so we look forward to being able to use that, so.
It's not in there now.
No, it's not.
Right, so yeah, we look forward
And
to,
we'll press.
being able to use that. The question I have is, in the mobility master plan, how are, sort of complete bike lanes? How is the policy structured in there? Does it have policies for complete bike lanes? Or which are bike lanes with the absolute minimum number of gaps in them so that they don't disappear as you travel lanes? Or is this just contained in the bike management plan?
Brief part, like it will be updated in the bike master plan, in addition to bike parking, the whole suite of the bike track. We missed that 10 years ago in the plan. But in addition to that, let's see, there's several pieces of that. I gotta remember each part. The street design manual now has like class 4, the cycle tracks. That was not there before, and now in the version we released this last December 20th, it has like each bike treatment. So if you build it, the specs are in there in the street design manual. And the third piece is the complete streets policy. That's the policy that the council adopted to support looking at vulnerable road users. And so that was like when you say like when you do a bike lane and how and what you're trying to address with safety, that's where like the spirit of the intent is in, and it's called council policy 900-23. It's a
Okay, so that's specifically addressed.
Yeah, and that was adopted in December of the previous year, so in December 2023.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Oh, yeah, sorry, guys. David.
Until community plans get updated, how will this actually be implemented into the average neighborhood?
So 2 parts, the projects that are from your current, wherever your current plans are, Golden, big, medium or branded. Those projects are brought in. Part of it was if we brought new gaps that weren't addressed there, it'd have to go through a full several year environmental clearance process. So those are brought in, but they're stored and they're given costs. They're kind of more actionable, I guess you could say. So in as much as your community has a focus area, and then if you want to look at your projects, that's where you would look, is in each focus area on the project side. On the programs, that's citywide, regardless of focus area. It's meant to be comprehensive. So it talks about strategy and who would actually make it happen, whether it's art in the public right of way, transit fare subsidies, wayfinding, neighborhood electric vehicles that are not provided by MTS that can be provided by the city or a private entity. Those conversations are there about sort of the nuts and bolts, how much it costs, who would have to develop it, and then how would it be sustainable over time. That's what a program is. So,
circulation elements within community plans that go back.
Yeah, and it's like a hub. We got a graphic, it was like a hub and spoke, but I think it's meant to be sort of both, right? It's not this isn't replacing community plans, but as like even University City and Hillcrest were updated because it was right, within the cycle of this plan. But I guess College, Mid-City, those are the 2 big ones at Claremont. Those will be folded into the next version, and all those projects will be brought in. And at that point, we hope it would be citywide, right? All 52 community plans, all your projects, and then bringing them in, adding some value about prioritization and dollar and cost. And hopefully in the implementation time frame and marrying it with programs. Make it more effective, cost effective.
I'll be quick too. So Navajo made the point that most of us got here by car tonight. I am that exception. So because I am that exception, one thing I know from practical experience is that cars aren't going to go away because of the grocery shopping problem. If you have to buy groceries, you don't have a car, you go to the grocery store every other day. And most people don't have that on their schedule to go grocery shopping every other day. So it's not really a complete project and complete plan until you have that micro mobility to the grocery store. That's something other than a electric bike or something that gets you only as much as the 2 bags that you can carry. And you need to carry 4 or 5 bags so that you don't have to go to the grocery store every other day. And I know it's a micro issue, but in the large scheme of things, it's a macro issue.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Phil. Great. Paul, we will be moving on to the next agenda item. The the shortest possible version of the presentation.
So,
For more talking.
hi, I'm Paul Coogan, I'm the chair of the Normal Heights Community Planning Group, and it's,
Call your attention.
sorry.
I said, please give Paul your attention.
Oh.
We can move on.
You're probably well aware of the fires that were happening in Los Angeles, and what I'm about to present is probably kind of feels like a no-brainer, but devil's in the details. So I'm gonna walk you through it rather quickly, and I'll ask that if you have questions for details, comments, just bring it to me directly. I think we need to expedite the meeting. I think we can regain some time if we really focus on just asking the questions you need for a decision on the action item. And I'm certainly willing to do this presentation for any other groups that would like. So let's go ahead. Let's go right into it. So we have a growing threat of wildfires in the urban area. The fires in the Pacific Palisades and Pasadena, Altadena were devastating. I actually lived in Pasadena right at the border of that fire for quite a portion of my life. The Normal Heights fire in 1985 predates my residency here, but it was a catastrophic event within the city limits of San Diego. And so wildfire is not limited to sparsely populated rural areas anymore. So very high fire hazard severity zones, and I'll just be referring to that as the zone from now on. So that's quite a mouthful, but it is rated in by the state fire marshal in 3 categories: moderate, high, and very high. And it's really the concern is with these very high fire hazard severity zones. There's a number of public resources and laws that are based on those zones, and we'll touch on a few of those. And those zones are defined by vegetation, topography, and weather conditions. And we have a significant amount of San Diego that classified as that. We'll see a map later on. Here's a few quotes from the Palisades fire, and I'm going to skip right to the bottom here because we have a resident. I'll let you read that yourself, and then we have someone who's an expert in water resources saying they don't know of a system that would be able to take on this kind of fire. And the actual chief, the CEO of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, is municipal water systems at the ends of extended main lines. So there were smaller lines, and that would be relevant for a lot of our older communities. And the local governments have a responsibility to address this, according to our Attorney General. We have a lot of the same risk profile in San Diego that we see in Los Angeles. Climate conditions with Santa Ana winds, high temperatures, prolonged droughts. We have a vulnerable infrastructure. We have an aging water delivery, especially in our older mid-city area. And we have limited evacuation routes. We heard some comments earlier about new projects that are out at the end of a canyon rim on a dead-end street or having limited access. We also saw this during the Montezuma fire, where there was the Kensington area was trying to be, and College area were trying to do evacuation routes. And we have a lot of resource constraints in terms of being equipped for these fires. And we just found out that with the aerial support being grounded in high winds, that those tankers and helicopters are not the silver bullet solution for wildfires. As you can see on this map, the very high fire hazard zone in Los Angeles, you see sort of an equal area between these two. But in Los Angeles, these are their fire hazard zones are on hilltops and mountains around their basin. In San Diego, we see those same areas downhill from our building structures. So those canyons are more susceptible for rapid fire movement as it goes uphill. This is where Normal Heights is on this map, as you compared in size with the Eden fire and the Palisades fires. So over time, we're seeing a trend here where in the early 2000s, we saw the Cedar fire in the San Diego County. It's quite large. And you'll see on the y-axis here is the number of fatalities. And then the size of the bubble is the number of structures destroyed. And then you have time across your x-axis at the bottom. So we can see that the old fire and cedar fire, those are pretty severe. But if we go to the next slide, we'll see that the Tubbs fire moved into urban areas in Santa Rosa and Napa Valley. And the damage was a lot bigger. And if we move on to 2020, we see the Camp Fire wiped out the town of Paradise. Now, I've not colored this as red because I wouldn't consider that really an urban area, although it is a city and it was completely wiped out. It was in the forest. So that's kind of an outlier. But as we move into the new fires here, we can see that the Palisades Eaton fire is as large as the Camp Fire and is also in an urban area. We also have a lot more fires happening. These are smaller fires, but there's significant number of structures destroyed, 2,300 structures, 1,400 structures. Dixie Fire, 1,300 structures and 1 death. So the trend is becoming larger, hotter, more dangerous. Normal Heights Fire, my hometown, 76 houses lost, damaged 57, and that was again, hoses ran dry. We didn't have enough water in the mains to supply the pumper trucks for that fire, so they decided to lose houses and create fire breaks like they did in the Eaton fire. We were promised better fire break management infrastructure updates, and 40 years later, we're still waiting for those water mains to arrive. And San Diego has a history of missing infrastructure goals. Just got through talking about transportation and the roadways and so on. Meanwhile, infill construction is continuing in these very high fire hazard zones. So let's talk infrastructure. This is the city's data on the awarding of contracts for the replacement of water pipelines. And by their own data, they're missing their target. So if these contracts aren't awarded, those crews don't go out because the contract hasn't been made. Fire station backlog, according to the city's data, the city's own data, we're going to have a $235 million total gap in the next 5 years just for funding fire stations. And this funding includes the DIF fees, the citywide DIF, and the infrastructure fund. So you can see that here in 2027, they've got plans to build a lot. There's a big shortfall. And at the end here, $235 million short. Next up, we have the density. Our current state of affairs in Normal Heights. This is the Adams Avenue along here, going up to the Canyon Rim, overlooking the 8, 805 and 15. And this is our very high fire hazard zone here in orange that covers all of those Canyon Rim homes. These blue houses, or these blue parcels, are where there's more than one dwelling unit on a parcel. We would normally think of the north of Adams as single family homes, but it was infilled in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s with ADUs and granny flats. South of Adams, we see the infill happening with the Huffman Project 6-pack, 8-pack commercial housing. So these red dots, they represent multifamily homes. The blue are lots with more than one dwelling. So this is a lot of density in this area with not much exit, especially when you get out into the fingers that lead out into canyons. Let's go to the next one. We have an example here, just up the street from me is 2 lots overlooking the canyon onto the 15. Nice properties. They used to have pools, which are now just mosquito hazards. And the plan is to to renovate this house and add an ADU with a garage. Good for them. Over here, this lot has decided to put in 8 ADUs. And it's in the fire hazards. So this is a stack and pack example. This is not a good player. This person's playing nice. This one's not. Next one. On the other side of Normal Heights, we have this nice bend that comes around on Mountain View. A lot of drivers like to take this sort of like it was a Le Mans. And then you have a pinch point here where the 8 freeway comes up into this canyon. And the 805 comes up into this canyon, and you have a pinch point with these two as your only exits from all of these houses. And right here, we're gonna build basically one single family dwelling unit with an ADU and 6 bonus ADUs for a total of 8 dwelling units on one parcel. Next step. So all of the San Diego housing incentives can be used in the very high fire hazard zones. At first, I thought that SB 9 was excluded because in the law it says that it has provisions for very high fire hazard zones. It turns out that the SB 9 lot splitting simply adds compliance with Public Resources Code 51182, which says that there has to be defensible space and a vegetation management plan and enough road access to get large vehicles. So it doesn't really exclude a lot of areas, especially on Mountain View that has wide street. They can certainly do a lot split. There seems to be a strong reliance on the Chapter 7A. Now, Chapter 7A is a really good program that started in the 90s and was adopted in 2005 that increased fire resistance, not just for the house, but defining the eaves, the burn time on the walls, burn time on windows, and really improved housing safety. We'll see a lot of survivors in the Palisades and Eden fires that had buildings that were built after 2005 and had 7A compliant materials. However, 7A is not enough. 7A is intended to resist building ignition and are safeguard against the intrusion of flames resulting from small ember and short-term direct flame contact exposures. So these exposure requirements, exterior wall and siding sheeting is only 10 minutes. So if you have a fire outside your home for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, it's done. Exterior windows, 8 minutes. So this is not really enough. Plus, when you put an ADU on a parcel with an older home, the older home does not have to be upgraded to 7A standards. So now the older home catches and it burns down the ADU because it doesn't have the burn time to withstand the older home, the anchor house, burning right next to it. Next. So density is a risk multiplier, and this is actually a touchy subject. There's research both ways. We're seeing that there's research that says that it's better to have dense urban areas because then you're not building out into the wildland urban interface. But the reality in San Diego is that we are all in that interface. The Forest Service study showed that there was an 11% survival rating for homes built prior to 1997. And that probably maps back to 7A standards. Evacuation routes. Evacuation is always the best course. There was when the Montezuma fire happened on Halloween, just recently, evacuation order came into Normal Heights, and I only know about 3 or 4 people that actually evacuated. The rest of the people, they didn't see smoke, they didn't see fire, they didn't care. And then later on, the Palisades fire, we're now all on tender hooks whenever an alert comes in because we know the speed that fire would come through. Routes might be gridlocked. We saw this in the Palisades fire. People abandoned their cars on Highway 1. They're told to run for your life. Police might not be available. And with the Montezuma fire, there was a shooting over near SDSU, and they had to respond to that. And so they left their posts for traffic control in favor of a higher emergency. We also have pole-mounted utilities. This is not uncommon to cities. And when they're down, that blocks your evacuation route. And those without access to cars might have difficulty evacuating. Most people that are killed in fires are the elderly. The statistic is you're over 60, you're more likely to be left behind and not be able to get out. There's also transient populations, tourists, homeless. I don't think the tourists are coming into town with SD Fire app on their phones. So it'd be nice if we had some like air raid sirens or something that said, get out. I remember that we had air raid sirens when I was a kid. So some communities have actually started to build a sheltering in place approach. And this is not to replace evacuation, but the new planned communities, and there's, I think, 3 within San Diego County. They're designed from the ground up to withstand the heat and flames of approaching fire. And there's a long list of things that have to be done. They have to have fire district approval. They have to have a landscape and vegetation management plan. They have to have road and driveway bits for the apparatus. They have to have the sprinkler water supply. They have to have a vegetation modification zone. There's a lot of requirements, and all of the houses in that community have to participate. It's a one or none. So I'm proposing that since wildfires are an immediate threat, that we have evidence of fires that are extreme risk to urban infrastructure, and our current infrastructure can't mitigate this risk. I'm requesting that there be an emergency moratorium on all infill construction projects in the very high fire hazard severity zones within the city of San Diego until they can do a comprehensive risk assessment and mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay. Thank you, everyone. As you all may know, we have a hard 8:30 stop time, and we have 40 minutes now, and I do want to give everyone enough time to speak. So I'm going to go through public comment again. I am going to keep you on a tight timer. If we could keep the comments to around like 1:30, and then for board comments, I would like us to stay like around 3 minutes each. Okay. Do I have any public comments? Yes, in the back, and then I'll move forward. If you guys have public comments, if you could kind of come to the front so we can get through it a little bit more quicker instead of me having to call on you.
I want to thank you so much for giving us this presentation. I am a resident in Encanto. Thank you for representing us, please. We are here. I've just been kind of brought into all of this world of all of you guys and learning about the beautiful work due to bonus ADU projects coming into our neighborhood. We have a 43 unit 2 doors down that's being proposed. We are in a high fire density, and we are scared to death that we're not going to be able to get our kids out, our elderly parents out, and the elderly within our community who already have a hard time getting around and moving around our streets. I really urge you to vote yes for this moratorium, because we have 35 different ADU projects. You're wowing over 8. 8 is our smallest one. They go from 8 to 43. It's insane. This density, just onslaught is not safe. It's creating our egresses are already failing as of 2015. So if something happens and comes to San Diego, it comes to our Encanto neighborhood, and nothing is happening here to stop it, then there is blood on people's hands. And I have to be that voice. I'm glad I'm here for my community to say, please put this moratorium and keep our neighborhood safe and the families who are renting and owning there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please step a little bit further in so folks on Zoom can see you. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. It looked at, as they said, it looked as if almost all the buildings that burned in LA were in high fire areas and were not up to code. Hardly anything in the high fire areas in San Diego is up to current modern code either. We need to encourage people to replace dangerous old buildings with safe new buildings that are to code, not pass a moratorium to stop them from doing it. The city would probably get sued if they did anything that dangerous. In LA, there was a problem fighting the fire in the Palisades because of low water supply. I've also read that their normal height had water supply. Normal height fire had water supply problem too. Fortunately, over the last 40 years, the city has replaced water lines and increased the water supply throughout the old neighborhood south of Mission Hills, not just in Normal Heights. Replacing single-family housing units with multi-family actually saves water. San Diego Water Department says that single-family housing units in San Diego use twice as much water as multi-family units. Half the water single-family use goes to landscaping. Yes, the city needs more money for infrastructure, The good news is new development increases the city's tax base and gives us more money for the things we need. Yes, we can continue to improve the city code and zoning regulations every year, just as we have in the past. One thing we need to do is have a cheap can so that we can encourage owners to replace old flammable buildings with new, much needed housing. Another thing we need is to do is make historic preservation voluntary only, rather than force it on property.
Thank you. Yeah. Next.
Can we limit to questions rather than comments? I don't know. What the rules are.
I just want to challenge your, I did say your zoning map for the high fire area, because it does not include any part of basic Oklahoma. It doesn't include any of the areas. You can look on the city of San Diego's map of where the high fire danger is, and it's all over the place in Oklahoma. And we only have one inlet, ingress and outlet to go, one fire department. So we also agree that this needs to be addressed. Adding 56 units to a single lot. It's on a very, a single one roadway at 104 Rosecrans. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's, you're adding more people, no parking. And complete fire danger for all of us to even get out of it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Tom Mulaney. I live in Mission Hills. So we had a lot of canyons. Also other uptown neighborhoods, University Heights, Hillcrest, Bankers Hill, lots of canyons. And we're very concerned that fire could come up the canyon like it did in Normal Heights. So as Paul Slide pointed out, a lot of these are pie-shaped lots that actually have a lot of square footage. They're not a good place to build them. Unfortunately, the ADU program encourages developers to pack multiple ADUs on these lots. So I certainly support Paul's plan to reevaluate that. I'd also like to suggest a broader program to evaluate ADUs in general. And I think that came up at City Council today. So tying in the fire danger with the ADU program would be a good project for CPC. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mike Singleton with Uptown. I do live in Bankers Hill and I live on a canyon, so I certainly understand the concerns that people have about these fires and not arguing any of the points that were made here. But I would not put it on the same level of infill projects in urbanized areas like we have, even though we do have canyons, it's not on the same level as some of the sprawl that's building out in urban wild interfaces. And if you look at the Palisades, you may think of it as an urban area, and Altadena, they're both next to huge open space areas, that, you know, part of the National Forest System for that matter. So thinking that taking up the pressure of our housing requirements and saying that that shouldn't happen in infill areas and pushing that to some of the exterior portions of town is actually going to put people at higher risk out in those areas. They can be done better and we can do a lot better in the infill areas, but I'm just suggesting that you don't compare those two like they're equals. Thank you.
Yeah.
Laura Langston, University City Fire Council. I think right now our city is focusing so much on becoming a megalopolis, and it's not treating the problems that we already have that are existing. And I feel after watching LA fires, some of them were very near where I used to live, that it's not going to be if it happens, it's going to be when it happens. And I think that all of us have to really pressure the city to help us do things to mitigate this problem with brush management in our canyons, stopping all this development until the neighborhoods are assessed for the infrastructure. I also know that just even now, the density going on Genesee Avenue in the university area, even if they weren't putting in the pipe, if a fire were to break out during the rush hour, we would not be able to move. We would literally, my expression would be become toast. And so I'm concerned that we build our decaying infrastructure first, get that up before we start adding more density that's only going to create more problems.
Thank you.
I agree with everything she just said. I just want to also point out that very high fire zone, I know in Hamershire, we have 1,328 homes. And 300 of those homes are not in very high fire zone. So there are some canyons on this side, which is very high fire zone, but on this side, there are no canyons like right here, and those are still homes. Like I said, mainly 40 to 60, 1940, 1960. So I really hope this will get passed and get support. And if you go to other planning meetings and try to get them to jump on board, I would love to see that. The Urban Collaborative Project, I have never heard of it. I've lived in District 4 for over 20 years. They absolutely do not speak for Hampshire and most of District 4. They're a tiny little area, and like I said, I hadn't even heard of them, and I've been involved in the community on several things, including the planning committee. They've never come. So we really, really have to improve the communication, but this is a great, great plan. One other thing is there was 71st Street. It's so narrow that when they called the cops, 3 cops didn't realize it was dead end. 3 cruisers went down. They took almost 20 minutes to get the cruisers out of that street. They wasn't wide enough to do 3-point turns on this street. And that's one where a house already burnt down where they're putting new homes. So I applaud you for this project. Thank you very much.
What comment? I don't have anyone else. No,
Thanks. I'm Karen Austin. I live in the college area. I want to thank you very much for a great presentation and your leadership to just really help us with this conversation and planning. And our go-to guy, Tom Silver for college area, David Modi for Kental, and others of you, City Heights, Normal Heights. We're all working together more than ever now. We're creating fire safe councils like the Branch Fire Safe Council, and others in the room may be getting on board with that as a really great forum to further the education and the planning and the action steps we can all take with our own homes and with our communities. Everybody knows the embers are flying, so we're all at risk. So I thank you very much for working on this as the planning committee and the individual planning boards. I hope that we can get behind this, and I hope that the next step will be to continue the planning. We have the 4 updates in our area for Kental, college area, Normal Heights and City Heights for all the plan updates right now. And I hope that we can support you and all the planning board chairs to really make this happen on the local level about evacuation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll add, we do have in attendance on Zoom is the chair of the Kensington Township Fire Safe Council, along with the I think one of the new members that were just starting up Fire Safe Council in them.
thank you. I'm gonna start with David Modi for board comment.
No comment.
Great.
No, I'm good.
Richard Penasquitos, Marcel.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it. Kind of dovetails with my talk about the state density bonus laws. And I wanted to get a comment from you. Scott Wiener put in the last session. Yeah, SB 610, which would have gotten rid of the fire safety zones in favor of a new system, which would have promoted more density. So we are not getting help from the state on even safety issues. So you want to, it's a rumor that he's going to, even after the LA fire, is going to try and reintroduce this. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, my intention with this movement is to start getting the insurance and building industry involved, because I feel like they have a stake in this. And I'd like to see a collaboration between communities, builders, developers, and governmental agencies. So I think this is the first stop. Next up would be county and state. The fire safe councils are already ready to sign on. I think a few of the CPGs are also going to probably write their own letters. I have connections up north with the director of Parks and Recreation that was right in the Palisades fire. Her home was actually only spared because her crew foamed her house in the community center.
Thank you, Mission Beach. North Park.
I'll talk to you later about Fire Safety Council.
Peninsula,
Thank you.
City Heights. Skyline, Paradise Hills.
Yeah, one quick one. Side setbacks, are they related to the fire code or? Is that just design?
I believe that I'm not the expert on that, but the side setbacks of 4 feet are part of the zoning. And in the ADU program, they had pulled it back to a 0 lot line, I think in 2020, and then they repealed that back to 4 feet afterwards. But I do have an example of one ADU in our neighborhood that was built at the 0 lot line within 17 inches of the neighbor's chimney.
Okay, well, it's like, my name is Tom Pettis with the fire. Is the 8 feet between houses going to mitigate that, or do I only have 10 minutes before my house catches on fire?
The 10 minutes that's quoted in the 10 minutes in the chapter 7A rating is based on a direct flame, and there's a certain amount of BTU energy that's with that. So that's an engineering question, and that's beyond my pay grade.
Okay, no problem. This is an excellent presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
And this is a little history. I think it's 1552 when Cabrillo came into what is now Los Angeles Basin. He called the area the harbor of smokes because there were so many damn fires going on at the time. So we've always had this problem in California, and how we mitigate it today compared to the 1500s is a challenge.
Thank you. Linda Vista,
Thank you for your presentation, very informative, appreciate it.
Rancho Bernardo,
Thank you also, appreciate it.
Mission Valley. Eastern area, Laura.
All I want to thank you, it's a great presentation. I'll thank everybody. I listened to a radio station in AM 640, and on Saturday morning from 6 to 8, and Sunday morning from 9 to 12, there is a host called Dean Sharp. And because of the Palisades fires, he has been doing all sorts of talks on how to get your house in shape to be able to resist the fire. And there's fire resistant paints out there. You can get tempered glass so the glass doesn't shatter and the fire just get inside your house. If you can't get tempered glass, you can put film up. He's got tons of ideas. He's got podcasts from the two sessions that have already passed. I really recommend everybody go out there and look at that website, look at his website, listen to his show. He is awesome, and he wants us to be able to save our homes for things like this.
I'll tack on to that the city will do a fire hardening assessment for your home for free. So you just have to go on the city's website and sign up, and they'll come out and take a look and make some make advice.
Thank you. Torrey Pines,
I don't have any questions. Thank you. Great.
downtown.
Well, thank you for a good presentation. What I'd like to see included in your thought process here is similar to Warren Buffett. I'd like to see the insurance company involved. Once their real financial analysis of the risk. But I think the problem is we're underpaying for insurance, and now we're complaining that insurance companies are leaving. Well, why are they leaving? They're leaving because of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Navajo.
Yes, thank you. Home run. To his point, there's a perfect storm here too, because as all these ADUs get built up, there's the habitat overlay where we're not allowed to run the base down and be too long-winded. That's the perfect storm. I mean, if somebody said it's not it, it's when this is going. Have you had the opportunity of presenting to the city of San Diego safety?
This is my first stop on this dog and pony show.
Okay, well, I think that would be a great place to go to. Well, I sat through that meeting, and they're really concerned about rough pavements, fire safety, wildlife fire safety.
Please send me information, and I'll make sure that gets out to the fire safe councils as well.
Okay.
I think there was some legislation in the fight about brush management on private property, because there's the city can't just come onto private property and clean it up. Yet at the same time, if it's a public hazard, they might have the ability of that sort of eminent domain.
The opposite's happening. We had a brief conversation. I live in an HOA over at Mariposa near the Rock Quarries. And the city's creeping up onto our HOA, claiming that there's sensitive habitat that's coming from their conservation lands up into our private properties. Therefore, we're not allowed to fire abate or brush abate for 5 months out of the year. So we would like to be in the safety meeting, so council members who, community members, are saying, hey, the private sector, homeowners need to get involved with brush abatement because of public policy. Homeowners can't get involved by a certain time of the year. For instance, we can't clear the hillsides between the city's conservation land and our HOA common lands that go down the hill between April 15th and August 15th. And so we're hamstrung on only being able to brush it maybe twice a year instead of 4 times a year. Quarterly, we like to do it quarterly, but we don't go twice a year. So to your point, there needs to be some analysis, especially in the very high fire hazardous severity zones, including looking at, for instance, I care about the environment, but look, if those hillsides catch on fire, all that sense of habitat's going to get toast, as somebody mentioned, anyway. So if they don't pay property tax, and we can look out for them, but we need to look out for people and property first. And foremost, and then we'll look out for the environment. We all care about the environment, sure. I'm a native state, and we care about it. But the sense of habitat can't put the fires. If we can be good stewards. They can't. So to your point, there needs to be some analysis here, some.
Thank you, Navajo.
Sure.
Thank you.
Scripps Ranch.
Do you have a fire safe council in your area?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but I'll look into it. We are formally, I'm not sure.
I can get you contact information, because I think that would be a good way to get some immediate action and solution where there's coordination between the city and the different entities to get the brush cleared on private land.
Thank you.
Scripps Ranch.
Thank you all. This is obviously close to home for Scripps Ranch. We lost 309 homes in 2003. Cedar Fire, and 2 of our board members are 2 that lost their homes. So Scripps Ranch is extremely active in this particular area, and I suggest that you work with us, because the Fire Safe Council is one of the best ones that we prepared Sandy's on that Fire Safe Council, and we've been doing this since 2003. So we do have a lot of information we can probably talk with you about. We have the same issues with having these ADUs and no setbacks, and we've written letters to the mayor and the city back in November. We have the fire department coming to our next board meeting to talk about Miramar, and we've got the base fire coming to talk about, all kinds of stuff, all of these issues. We also have the major issue that we have, though. One of them is the fact that you can't do brush abatement beyond 100 feet of structure. So there's a lot of areas that we can't get to off that south of Pomerado that's just collecting all these eucalyptus tree droppings and everything else, and it's been building up year after year. We can't clean in there because there's environmental things and native habitat and all of this stuff. So there's a very difficult balance that we've got, that we are facing. And it's good that you're doing this. I appreciate this. I want to, not to take a lot of time. I could talk for hours about it, but I encourage you to talk with us, with the Scripps Ranch Fire Safe Council. Our civic association has been doing presentations on AB 3074 and the zero zone perimeters. Yeah, our community is very plugged into this, and we're knowledgeable. But thank you. This is
Email me.
Yeah.
Let's continue the conversation.
Thank you. And Canto.
Okay, so Choice Valley has the highest number of bonus ADU projects in the pipeline. And they are just tinder boxes because of the problems with egress in the state. So you have a request for an action item, building moratorium. And I just want to say that when we put that motion on the table, I would be fiercely and enthusiastic to support.
Thank you. Sarah Mason.
No, thank you for your presentation.
Uptown.
Thank you. Great presentation, detail oriented, really great. As far as infill, you just mean single ADUs? You mean, or are you talking on the larger scale, like high rises, more density in housing?
anything that adds population.
Anything that's adding population. So
Yes.
I'm with you both from the stance of adding. The population. I don't know that the ADUs are as big an issue. As some of these other larger developments where there's, like you said, there's 8 ADUs on one single lot. Uptown particularly is the big issue for us because we have our new communities plan. Forecast 17,000 homes in the uptown area over the next 20 years. We sit on that bluff. You know, they just had the Montezuma fire, they just had one last week over in Mission Valley directly across from us. On a high wind day, that's gonna come right at the hillside. Personally, where I live at, it's a 2-lane road in or out, and we have probably 150 homes on this block. So it's a death trap. It would come on both sides and with all that. So from that perspective, I support you on it, but I don't know that shutting down all development, because there are so many zones that are considered high fire zones. So I would agree with you, but just maybe infill construction on a larger scale. So anything developments 10 units or more.
And that's a good point, because this is a starting point. We're making a request, a proposal, a recommendation to the city. What they do with that, anywhere from a straight up no, to well, let's take a look at how we can shape that.
Well, I think it might be more easier to push through if we weren't shutting down everything, but shutting down the larger developments that, you know, are gonna be the major problem. Because the density is right, you gotta be able to get people in and out.
And also, I think that when the builders start looking at this and saying, hey, you know, maybe we should get involved with this and shape the public safety, that's gonna help our public opinion, it's gonna help the survivability of our buildings, it's gonna help the insurability of our buildings. They will probably have some serious analysis and input to say, here's your problem areas. And that's where you put the brakes on. And maybe shifting those development projects to other areas. We know that for Normal Heights, we'd like to see more infill along Elkhorn Boulevard.
Okay, thank you. Yes, what time is that?
The gentleman, Padre, had a really good comment about brush management. Got a lot of experience in terms of brush management, and I wish I had more of a focus on that as opposed to the moratorium on any bill that's accepted. But I think the brush management is a really good solution that I hope you can add that to your.
Great, Mayor Mason. College.
Oh, thank you very much. Great report. I've already had several emails from the college area folks, very supportive of this. So I would have no problem supporting it as you presented. Maybe have to make a motion when it's appropriate.
University.
Okay, so I thanks for this presentation. I echo many of Merle Langston of the UC Fire Council comments. Fire safe councils are the most immediate thing we can do to get involved while the rest of this is going through whatever process it will go through. And I'll support this as a first pass to be refined over time.
Thank you. Here's Santa.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks for the presentation. I will just say that I come from the insurance industry. Do not like the apartments and stuff. That's why I pretty much all of them got canceled, but would end up being on the apartment scale or the 3 rather than doing 1 or 4. So I'm happy to help with any steps of the insurance side of it. Because I know a lot of that side, and I know it's concerned for our.
Yeah, please email me.
All right, thank you. Any board members I missed? Anyone hiding out? Okay, great. So when I was looking into this, I did see that California passed the California Fire Building Code back in 2022, and it was supposed to be implemented as of January 1st, 2023. So that was it goes a step further than the 7A fire codes, and I think it brings it up to the international fire code standards. Who I heard someone mention that. Do you know how far along the city is in the process in codifying those upgrades, or if we've started, or Marlon, do you know anything about?
I can try to find out.
Okay, thank you.
No, I don't. I don't know.
but that's one slice is to code. And then the question is, how do we apply new codes to older homes? I know that on my home, we've done a lot of retrofit. We've exchanged our cedar fencing for metal fencing. We've screened all of our vents. We've done vegetation management as much as you can do on a very small lot. But we still are at risk.
Yeah, because part of the code was you could use certain building materials that are known to be fire prone, but you could use fire retardants, but fire retardants don't last the lifetime of the building materials. So you would have to reapply fire retardants. Is that possible or like?
I don't think that would be recommended. The recommended approach is to eliminate eaves entirely and go with stucco over wood or wood products and even increase the thickness of the stucco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so thinking this through and thinking about a possible action item that could be feasible to start a conversation with, I hear what everyone's saying, and is it possible instead of all infill development, we target infill development that is used density bonuses, anything above a single family plan? That's kind of where my mind is going as to how intense we want to ask for this moratorium. I would also obviously be in favor of writing a letter. My biggest concern is the evacuation routes. If anyone's knows about the topography of Ocean Beach, it's hard to get out. And while I've been thinking about this since the agenda and since you brought this to me, you know, I do think that since we are in a high, not only fire zone area, an earthquake area, and then a tsunami risk as well after those earthquakes, we should have more evacuation plans in place, and those evacuation plans should be made readily available, and we should have knowledge of them, I think, year to year, based on updating conditions and knowing what to happen, you know, what to happen, what we should expect to happen during an emergency and how we should be alerted. And I think that would be a good project that the city should undertake with each community about possible evacuation plans in their community. So I would love for this to be a larger letter. I would love for that to be in the letter requesting that. What else did I hear? A brush abatement in the letter as well. So those are the things that I'm hearing that would be good to include in a motion if anyone were going to a motion.
I'll tag on to your comment about evacuation.
Yeah.
The Calder fire, which was in the Tahoe Basin, had to evacuate in 2 state counties and 3 cities. They were successful in employing public transportation to get tourists out. But as a result of that, they're the only place in the country that has a comprehensive evacuation and fire response plan that spans 2 states, 7 counties, and 3 cities. So there is an example out there that we can recruit.
Okay, great. Does anyone have a motion on the floor? Anyone want to make a motion? We are. Laura.
Well, maybe we can recommend an emergency as risk assessment, comprehensive risk assessment without really placing a moratorium on the infill construction projects. Or as some people said, more than like 3 units or 4 units. And then I do think it needs to include brush abatement. That's very, very serious. And I know they've been talking about it. And we have somebody in our neighborhood who is very part of his home is across from the Montezuma fire. They're just trying to get the city to let them have goats, see the vegetation, but the city won't let them have goats. I mean, they really need to pay attention to the project. Really, really good.
Yeah, we're running low on time, guys. So if someone did want to make a motion so that we could get a vote in before we get, yeah.
So I would have that we have a committee consisting of our chair and our chair, okay, and me, to craft a letter that is a moratorium on building infill with more than 3 units, and also encouraging the method of rough abatement.
Evacuation.
I would say, Martin, do you mind backing up to,
Do you want us to present the letter at next month's meeting and send it out, or would that
No, let's get it out there this week.
give us the authorization to write said letter and
Yeah.
send it out?
Yeah, I think we need to go up,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Letter. Needs to be. Yeah, if we possibly do what you've asked for, is the moratorium to just start. And then we'll do a committee to break it down to how specific this needs to then go forward, but because I think each community has different needs. For Ranch, not too many, there are some building 3 and 4 ADUs, but not that many. But we have issues with zero lot line or, very close, and we're trying to get these to stop before they get started. So it does sound like more of an emergency risk situation. So I'd rather go with a bigger general umbrella, your moratorium as you have described. And then we can put a meeting together.
I would really like to get the proposal in front of the city as soon as possible.
Okay.
And
then
in terms of the details, this slide really outlines what we're up against. And you have, you have things that we can do and we can't do. We can't change climate, but we can change infrastructure. We can fund our fire departments. We can do brush fire management. We can upgrade building codes. I mean, there's a huge list of things that we need to do.
Yeah, motion to be if you were listening.
I would do it as is.
Okay.
And maybe you want to say, new infill or infill larger than would be.
For just what I'm hearing, I don't think we're gonna have votes for infill that is where we don't have specifications in terms of time. I'm sorry, in terms of size. Yeah. So,
More than double the. Not more than double the existing.
Yeah.
On the lot, we
Yeah.
need more than double. Okay.
Double the existing on the lot. That's about.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, so Robert's rule of order, just to come up for a second, for the question. So our role here anyway is someone advisory, so our job, if we feel strong about the options, get it in front of the city. We're acting as an advisory role on this question. I think it's the same. So understanding what our role is important because that helps us vote. Yeah, we're simply making advisory to the city that.
Yes, it would be a request. We're gonna send a letter. Letter to.
I'll second motion. Let's call the vote.
Okay, so.
We have less than 2 minutes.
Thank you. I have a second on Encanto's motion, which is to write a letter asking for a moratorium on infill development that doubles the existing number of dwelling units on a parcel and includes brush abatement, and then we would request to work with the city on brush abatement needs and evacuation route needs and infrastructure needs. Or no, leave that off. No, just brush abatement and evacuation needs. Okay. Double or more. Okay, no, that's.
And I can say I'm sitting for that safety.
Let's go.
Do you want to have any discussion on the motion before I call a vote? Rancho Bernardo, yeah.
So I don't understand double on the floor.
So I'm gonna say
More than double. Double more.
Double, so yeah, it was more than double. Okay, yeah. I got that. Yes, Bob.
Adrian, money, but I would recommend, during fall recommendation, that moratorium is what we have considered as the price of the hospital. And here are some steps to get there.
Okay, I appreciate that language. Thank you, Bob. Okay, if there's no more discussion on the motion, I'm gonna go.
write the letter.
Yeah,
I thought you were
we're
right.
gonna,
Oh,
okay.
we're gonna do that?
I thought you elected yourself to.
I know.
And I don't know if you've seen any of my emails, there's typos sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna go through views here, and if I missed you again, just let me know. Encanto,
Yes.
City Heights, College area,
Yes.
downtown,
Yes.
Eastern area,
Yes.
Kensington Talmadge, Linda Vista,
Yes.
Mira Mesa,
Yes.
Mission Beach,
Yeah.
Mission Valley,
No.
Navajo,
Navajo supports.
yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Normal Heights.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, he's in charge. North Park,
Yes.
yes. Ocean Beach is a yes. Otay Mesa,
No.
Pacific Beach,
Yes.
Peninsula,
Yes.
Rancho Bernardo, Rancho Penasquitos, Scripps Ranch,
Yes.
Skyline Paradise Hills.
Yes, but I would suggest instead of saying wildfire, we just eliminate the wild part.
Thank you. Torrey Pines.
Yeah.
University,
Yes.
Uptown.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That passes with 3 no's. Oh, did I not? Sorry, Sarah Mesa. Sarah Mesa.
Yes.
Thank you. Tierra Santa. Yeah, I said if I missed you and you came in late and I still don't have you. Thank you. Tierra Santa. Yes. Okay. Did I miss anyone else? Wonderful. Okay. Unfortunately, I think we're at the end of time. But the lady's not here and
She actually peeked.
oh, okay, she peeked in. Okay. So we are gonna have to adjourn everything else on the agenda. I'm so sorry, and I'm so sorry, Bob. But if you are interested, I got one person emailing me that said they were interested in Bob's ad hoc committee. If you are interested, let me know. That'll make the agenda item shorter next time.
Can I also say that
Yeah, Marcella, go for it.
we are inviting every one of you to our next Monday evening at 6 p.m. meeting to talk about the turquoise tower and the state laws that are allowed to happen.
What, Monday?
Monday at 6 p.m.
Where? Yeah. Yeah, sure. And then I send it out to you.